Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Library Committee meeting on April the 1st of 2025. I will now invite Julie Hale, our committee clerk, to conduct the roll call.
Thank you, Chair. We have regrets from Regional Chair Redmond, Councillor Foxton.
Present.
Member Grant. Member Griffiths. Member Martin.
Present.
Councillor Nowak. Member Palmer.
Present.
And Chair Salonen. And Councillor Shantz.
Present.
I would like to acknowledge the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Shinawatin people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements, and their contributions to our community. I would like to ask if there are any declarations of pecuniary interest this morning. Okay, seeing none. We will move on to our reports for today, and I will call on Christina McLaren, our Manager of Library Services, to introduce this report.
Thank you, Chair. So the first report is on the library bequest policy. The Library Committee directed staff to bring forward a policy addressing the use of funds from trusts, donations, and bequests to ensure consistency in approach and to ensure that the use of the funds adds value or enhancements to the branches above the normal service level. So the bequest policy that we have created informs the acceptance and management of bequests and willed donations made to the library. Bequest funds will be placed in a library donation and bequest reserve fund until they are used to support special programs or initiatives outside of the annual operating budget. This will be an interest-earning reserve and will be administered by regional finance. Bequests or willed donations will not be spent on utilities, building maintenance, administrative expenses, or other expenses typically supported by the library's annual operating or recurring core capital budgets. Funds will be allocated in accordance with the donor wishes. So, for example, a donor may wish their bequest be put to a specific branch location. In those cases, measures will be taken to ensure those funds are reserved for the specified branch. Library management will develop a plan to spend bequeathed funds where feasible and will present to the Library Committee for approval. Staff will provide Library Committee with an annual summary of disbursements from the Library Donation and Bequest Reserve Fund. And I do want to note that two large sum donations have previously been bequeathed to the library: the Taylor Bequest, which sits in the North Dumfries Library Capital Reserve, and the Puttycombe Bequest, which sits in its own budget line. So these two bequests will remain in their individual reserve fund accounts. We'll mention too that the library reserves the right to accept or decline any bequests or willed donations. And one more note, just that the library has a general donation policy in place already, and that has been added as a reference to this report. So any questions?
Thank you very much, Christina. Councillor Foxton.
Good morning, everyone. Good report. A couple of things I'd like to discuss, not that we would really change, or we might though. So a bequest that originated in a certain municipality, I feel should go to that municipality unless otherwise stated, not the other way around. And so that's one I'd like to know. Undesignated reserve funds over $50,000 on, I wasn't comfortable with that. And also you mentioned later on that you can do a whole bunch of small spending that wouldn't be accounted for. What I'm looking for is accountability. So even if you are going to spend under $50,000 or even use the bequest, I'd like it done as an addendum to each meeting we have so that we don't wait for an annual meeting. And I'll tell you why. The Taylor bequest it was stated in the will that it would go for the preservation of archives as well as historical documents, the saving of historical documents. Well, we found out a year and a half after the money was spent that it was spent on a sign and a bike rack and some other stuff, which did not follow under that at all. So I think that we need to be on top of these things and see them at every meeting. We meet, what, every other month right now or whatever. So, but waiting annually is too late because at that time the money was done, the things were bought, and we had no knowledge of it. So we created a huge outcry in my community. So things like that, if they could, and it's nothing to do it as an addendum. I mean, you're not spending tons of money every day, are you? And if you are, can it come my way? But anyways, so those were one of them. And yeah, so those are the two things I wanted to talk about.
Thank you, Councillor Foxton. So just so that I understand, are you looking to make amendments then, or?
I want to open it for discussion because I don't think I should have the only point of view. If others agree with me or disagree, I'd like to hear the discussion.
Okay, very good. Are there others?
And then I'll make amendment.
Okay. Are there others with comments on that, Councillor Shantz?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, Sue, especially I know what we've gone through with the Taylor bequest and sort of discussions around how it should and shouldn't be spent. And so, yeah, I think bringing it to the meeting, if you're spending bequest money or if you're considering spending bequest money, that we can at least see it and discuss it. I don't have a problem.
Yes, to Mr. Griffiths.
I found it a bit confusing on the spending limits and whether it was designated funds or undesignated. I wondered if there shouldn't be some kind of a clear signing authority sheet that highlights exactly what, within what limits the particular parties are working and which items need to be brought to the committee here. Because it varies and there's different conditions where, for example, a large corporation donates $1,000, it gets referred, but some other items may not, that kind of thing. You know. So I just have that added comment on that. Thank you.
Yes,
Through the chair, if I might. So perhaps I can clarify a little bit. We're saying that a designated fund should get, if a fund's come in and someone has said it should be for this, then that fund gets spent on whatever it's designated for. What we're saying here, if there's an undesignated gift, particularly one over $50,000, that would come to the committee for approval. 50,000 is actually in line with the manager's signing authority. So as a matter of course, under regular business, the manager would be able to sign off on purchases under 50,000.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions at this time? Councillor Foxton?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, and I understand, but coming to the committee, if you're going to spend 50, it's not going to be last minute. Oh, I'm going to spend $50,000 today. So you have probably planned that. So there's nothing wrong with reporting that to the committee before spending it or at the time of spending it. I don't want to wait a year to find out that it was spent and how it was spent. I think we need to be more open because we haven't been open in the past. And that's been a lot of the problems with the animosity between the committee and how it's handled. So I think we need the openness, and I think there's nothing wrong with reporting at each meeting what's planned to be spent, what you hope to spend, and what is spent. And again, if it's bequested, when a donation or a bequest is sent in, the first thing we should ask is it designated for the municipality that it comes from, or did you want it to libraries in general? I think that should be a statement on each of our things so that we are very clear with the people on understanding how they wish that bequest spent. Because ours was very clear, and it didn't matter. It was spent anyways. And over 100,000 was spent without our knowledge. So we never want that to happen again. And if you did 250,000, there's 100,000, I don't even know it's gone. And that's what it was. It wasn't one item. So this could happen again if we're not very careful. Thank you.
I can respond to that.
Sure. Commissioner Regier.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Sullivan. I think that's exactly the point of the update to the policy, that we set in motion a reporting process. I think that we can certainly make an amendment to the policy that would see us report to the committee after funds have been spent. And as part of the annual budgeting process, to the extent that we're able to anticipate capital expenditures from bequests, I think that can be presented to the council, to the committee, as part of the budget process as well. Sometimes opportunities come up that aren't anticipated in the process, and bequests might come through that need to be dealt with immediately. But obviously, we want to make sure that we're transparent and accountable to the committee for the way that we manage these funds.
Thanks, Rod, and that's exactly what we want. The other thing is if something comes up and you have to react, it's nothing to send the committee an email saying this is what's happening and this is what and then we have open communication. And I think that's essential.
Any additional questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Griffith.
Just a comment, that there's a reference to willed donations, and I have trouble with distinguishing that from just being a bequest. Like, why do we need a willed donation category? There are policies for bequests and donations, and I can't understand the distinction on a willed donation. It is a bequest, certainly, in my view.
Through the chair, I think that's correct. And I believe the will, donation, and bequest language came from legal, so it's just being all-inclusive. But yes, I think we actually define it that a bequest is a will donation.
So, Chair, are you looking for an amendment, or are you looking
Potentially, I just want to confirm that Mr. Griffiths is satisfied with that answer, or if you had additional questions.
So you're stating that it's a legal requirement to use that term?
No, I'm stating that the
It's not
language came
defined
from
here.
legal.
Pardon?
I'm stating that the language came from our legal department, so that's why we included it.
I see. Okay. The other area, if I may, is trusts. I don't see very much information around trusts, and I presume that would be something the legal department would be heavily involved in. But I don't see that category covered unless I'm missing something here. Thank you.
So through the chair, the trust would be, well, I think we're probably aware, but there are some times where a bequest will come in and there's stipulations within the bequest that they're the kind of the principle of the request of the bequest will be held in trust, and then proceeds from the interest or investments would then be the ones that are dispersed. We don't have a trust like that. I have worked in other situations where that's the case, where there's a trust which then funds the activities that are done on an annual basis or whatever under the terms of the bequest. I think it's just to give us that opportunity, really, to if someone wanted to put funds in trust for us, they could.
Did you have any more comments or questions at this time?
Not right now, that's fine.
No?
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Foxton, yes.
Julie has she's typing up the motion now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. As she's typing that up, I'll just kind of throw in my comments. I can certainly appreciate the $50,000 spending being in line with the manager component. My only concern is that I don't know how many bequests we're getting that are really over $50,000 that often. And I do think that those funds are quite different than what we budget for and have on our regular spending. And that's a very different accountability system, I think, than if somebody, for example, donates $10,000 to the library. So I would like to personally see more accountability there, as well as so that family members can see that their money is being spent the way that their loved ones had intended. The other thing that I think is kind of coming up in here, I found some of the language just a little bit confusing, that if we do have to be asking continual questions, I don't know that we're setting up future groups for success when we're no longer the people around the horseshoe, including staff. I think the more plain language that we can use, the better it is, so that the intent of what we're trying to do is captured in the future. So that would just be something in general I would like to see, I think, changed and updated to this. So I don't know that that can necessarily be done by making an amendment per se today versus reporting back, but that's just kind of my 2 cents. But Councillor Foxton, on your amendments, or are you waiting for Clerk Hale to? Oh, never mind, it's up on the board. My screen is different than that one. So we do have up a amendment that the regional municipalities of Waterloo approve the library bequest policy as set out in Appendix A of Report PLD CUL 25-010 dated April 1st, 2025, and that all disbursements and planning disbursements be reported to committee on a regular basis, including undesignated reserve funds. So that has been moved by Councillor Foxton. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Nowak. Are there comments or questions on the amendment as proposed? Yes, Councillor Shantz.
Just a question, it went away. Is the, it's open reporting, it's not reported quarterly or semi-annually, it's just reported on a regular basis. Did you want to be more specific?
Okay, so it has, the language has been updated to say reported to committee on each committee agenda. Any other comments or questions on this amendment? Mr. Griffiths? I can just see you reaching for your microphone.
I wasn't going to comment on that. I was just going to say that there's a few inconsistencies in the body in terms of expenditure of designated funds during a given year. In one case, it says they must spend it. In other ones, it says up to 10,000 if you want to separate the components. So I'm a little confused, or I think if you go through, there's some inconsistency in some of the language, and I would just bring that to your attention.
Thank you. Councillor Foxton?
Yeah, and that concerns me too, going with, let's say, future bequests. They shouldn't have to be spent in the same year. Like the Taylor's bequest is for the preservation of archives and documents within the township of North Dumfries. And so that should be something that's ongoing, and it shouldn't have a time limit, especially with the amount of money that was bequested. If it's an amount under $10,000 and it's for a specific thing, I can understand that. But I'm not sure why we lay the timeline on it.
So through the chair, one of the reasons we would want to be able to spend bequest funds within a reasonable time is just it helps with accounting. So if something's under $10,000, if we can disperse it in the year that it came in, that actually helps us not having to carry over small amounts in a reserve fund.
Yes, Mr. Martin.
Yeah, just a comment on the policy in general, or a small item. In the donations policy, there's a specific comment about acknowledging and saying, sending out thank yous. There's nothing in this policy that says that. So I don't know if that's appropriate or not. I mean, it's not to the person who donated, it is to the estate, but I think the estate might appreciate some acknowledgement. So just some thought on that.
So through the chair, that's something that would normally be taken care of in terms of in the terms of the bequest, or if there was an agreement around the donation, the recognition often is built into that. It's not necessarily built into the policy.
But is there any limitation as to why we couldn't put some, like a line in the policy saying if, it's not a part of the agreement? Because I don't disagree. I think having acknowledgement is important.
Thank you. Through the chair, usually we leave that up to the donor, because some donors prefer to be anonymous. Some donors might want to have some recognition. it usually goes gift by gift.
Did you want to add something in there?
Yeah,
Christine?
I just want to add in that the bequest policy is an add-on policy. Our donation policy is the core. So anything that would not be covered, like recognizing donors, would harken back to the donation policy itself. That's why there's a reference at the end of the bequest policy that references back to the donation policy as well. So the two do talk to one another.
So what I think was referencing is just a thank you card. And that's what I didn't want to see happen, is the estate donates something and then the region takes it and then the estate never hears back from us. That's all I was, not referencing actually an acknowledgement. I understand acknowledging publicly is a different thing, but just something sent back. So if that's taking place under the other policy or supersedes it, then that's what I was trying to address.
Yeah, we can certainly beef up the language in the donation policy. We are planning on reviewing that later this year, and can put a line in there about recognizing donors as appropriate for each different type of donation.
Councillor Foxton?
Also for large bequests, maybe we should look at a small plaque going within the library. Do we do that?
So through the chair, normally recognition around a gift would be sort of, well, it depends on how you do it. If you are in communication with the donor beforehand and you're sort of talking to them about, it's like a planned giving situation, then you might have a good idea of what the donor would like in terms of recognition. But it is also possible for us to get bequests with no advanced communication, right? Someone puts us in their will. So it's not a one size fits all where we would always do this or always do that. It would really be handled on a case by case basis.
And I'm just referring back to the Taylor bequest because I believe it was over $300,000, of which the library's already spent over $100,000 or close to 200. Anyways, I think the Taylor family's an established family in North Dumfries, and I think they wouldn't appreciate us, even just a small, on the donors wall, there is a donors wall, right? You know that, right? So there's a donors wall. So bequest from the Taylor estate would be, whichever brother it was, would be a nice touch.
So if I may, just for the sake of kind of moving this conversation along, maybe I'm hearing differently, but from what I'm hearing around the table is that no one's overly loving the exact wording as it is presented. Do we perhaps want to refer this decision pending having the comments that have been made around the table be addressed by staff and brought back? Just putting it out there as an option for discussion. I'm not certain people's thoughts around that.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, so would you be willing to move that? Yes.
Well, isn't it just defer to staff? Like, we don't have to do the motion at all. Just Rod's ready to pipe in.
The clerks are requesting a referral motion, and then we can give direction explicitly as to what we're looking to come back, I think.
So I will make that motion then. Refer back to staff, noting the discussion today.
Okay. And is that seconded by Councillor Nowak? Any other comments or questions, or does anybody want to ensure, I guess I will look to Commissioner Regier, is it sufficient kind of the conversation and for the comments that were made today to be reported back and commented on, or would you like a more explicit line by line kind of point out for direction?
Through you, Chair Son, and I would say, no, this conversation has been very helpful. I think Christina has already indicated that we're planning to bring back the donation policy later on this year. And so what I would suggest is that because people have talked about how these two policies relate to each other, we bring them back together as a package, and we can include your feedback that we've got today, we'll build up some language and maybe illustrate specifically how these two policies reinforce each other or work together. And if you have any other further suggestions, don't hesitate to send them on to Julian or Christina.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Regier. Do you have a timeline on that by chance?
Here, I'm going to look to Julian and Christina.
Probably by the end of the summer, maybe, say August.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Shantz?
Thank you. I think Len had some specifics where he saw inconsistencies. So if you can be in touch with him maybe before you get too far into looking at it.
Yeah,
Mr. Griffith.
I'd be happy to.
Through the chair, if
interact.
any of the committee members have points they want to highlight or mark up, they could do that and send it through email.
Okay, so.
Just one other comment is that
Yes.
I believe this would have to be modified anyway to reflect what we had in the wording of the motion that was made today. So that needs to be incorporated, or would be incorporated, I presume, into the new product. Correct?
I would make the same assumption as you, but I would look to staff as though that, yes, I'm getting nods of yes, that will be incorporated in the report back. Councillor Foxton?
Yes, but the one thing I want is again, without waiting for this to come back, is that at each of our meetings from now, we have what kind of expenditures are anticipated or have happened, so that we're up to date. And I'm not talking the nickel and dime stuff. Is there a low-level amount that we should say? Anything over 1,000 or 5,000? What do you guys think?
Are staff willing to take the report back as direction the clerk is asking? We're just trying to figure out logistically if you're looking for motion. Yes,
Through the
please.
chair, I think direction is sufficient, yeah.
Okay, very good. Councillor Shantz?
I guess I'm not sure that when we would have nickel and dime stuff coming out of a bequest, but, you know.
Right, but there has been. So, yeah, but I think we should be on top of expenditures regardless of what's happening. But again, I'm not talking, books are automatic, and this other stuff's automatic. But anything like hardware, like furnishings or other things, or signage or anything like that, should come to the committee, and we should be aware of what's happening.
Okay. Commissioner Regier, and then we'll go over to Mr. Griffith.
Yeah, I think through you, Chair Salinan, I think that's what we've agreed. To do that on a regular basis as part of every agenda. If there are expenditures out of the bequests, they'll be reported as part of the agendas for the committees.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Mr. Griffith.
Sorry to speak up so often, but I'm trying to learn here. But I notice there's a mixture of both policy and procedure. Is that the normal course that happens in the committee meetings? Other boards I've been on, it's been largely the policy that comes through the committee or the board, and then the procedures are an operational factor that details that out further for staff. But do we typically, just for my further education here, and whoever can answer it, include both the policy and the operating procedure? Because the operating procedure is presumably there for the staff to use on a day-to-day basis. Just a question of clarification.
That is a great question. I wasn't thinking first thing in the morning I was going to have to think that much, but I might defer to staff on that. I do believe on a larger scale, yes, you're correct. It's generally policy that we deal with, but I do think that we have a good relationship with staff to be able to go back and forth and want to understand processes as well. But I don't know if staff would like to make a comment on that. Julian?
Yeah, certainly through the chair. I think that's what the member is saying is correct. We would look for policy decisions around at the governance level here at committee, and that procedures would be just that, in procedures.
Does that provide clarity to some extent for you? Okay. Yep. Go ahead.
I'm not sure I was correct in the way I interpreted it, but is the ongoing policy of the board or this committee to receive both? I guess was what I'm just, I'm happy to go either way. Don't get me wrong. I'm not. I'm just curious because of my past experience and for clarification for the future.
I'm just looking to our clerks if they would like to chime in on the governance piece on that.
Sure, I can try. So yes, in general, policy is the realm of this committee and regional council, and procedures are the responsibility of staff. You know, with anything, if there's specific questions about said procedures, or if the committee and council have concerns with how staff have operationalized the policies, of course, you know, council can sort of intervene in that regard. But in general, yes, it's the policy direction of this is what we would like to see, and then staff are required to operationalize that through procedures.
All right. Very good. Any other comments or questions at this time? We do have a motion to refer this report back to staff for changes as discussed in the meeting today with respect to language, including plain and consistent language and acknowledgement and reporting procedures in the proposed bequest policy, and reporting back for the August 27th meeting. So are there any other comments or questions at this time? Okay. Seeing none, this has been moved by Councillor Foxton and seconded by Councillor Nowak, so I will call the vote for all voting members, all those in favor, and that carries unanimously. Okay. Fortunately, in this scenario, it's only 4 of us who have to vote, so it's a little bit quicker than the 16 of us at regional. Okay, so moving on to our second report today, and this is the library reciprocal borrowing arrangements. I will turn it back over to Christina McLaren, our manager and library services, to introduce this.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so reciprocal borrowing agreements. We have had reciprocal borrowing arrangements in place with 14 of our neighboring library systems since the early 2000s. This is good use of tax dollars. Of course, arrangements with neighboring library systems means that the value of a Region of Waterloo library card includes collections, resources, and services available through those neighboring library systems as well. However, there appears to be no written or signed agreements for some of the reciprocal arrangements that we have with these other systems. Library staff have been working on changing that. This report is notice for the committee that agreements will be forthcoming to Regional Council, which of course is our library board, for signature over the coming weeks and months. We have, and just for reference, we have signed agreements in place for 8 neighboring library systems, which includes Brant, Hamilton, Oxford, and the Perth County Information Network, which includes 5 library systems throughout Perth County. We're also looking to have agreements signed, so this process of getting new agreements signed will be focusing on Huron, Middlesex, Cambridge, Kitchener, Waterloo, and Wellington. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Foxton.
This is excellent. It's just I'm not sure the public is aware. Is there any way that we can have a signs put in our library saying, just a sign saying that your library card allows you to go to these municipalities?
We don't have any signs. It is something that we tell our patrons. It's part of we have a policy on reciprocal borrowing. I believe the membership information is on our website about reciprocal borrowing. So we're certainly not hiding the fact that you can go to a neighboring library system and get a card.
What do you think? Do you think a sign's necessary then, if they tell them and if it's on a website and everything else? It may be redundant.
So through the chair, one of the most effective ways to communicate something like this is through our emails. And that's a really good way to get to people and let them know what their library privileges include. We have a very good email list. We have a very good high level of people giving us permission to email them on a regular basis. So it's certainly something we can include in the email, newsletter, that sort of thing.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Griffiths.
Just highlight on section 6. I think the comments that are there are perhaps meant to be on the bequest policy because it doesn't seem to relate to this particular borrowing, if you can see what I'm referring to. Is that correct?
Through the chair, yeah, I think there's a typo actually, but we did consult with the township CEOs on this policy as well.
Okay, so just a correction. Sorry. Okay, thank you.
So with that, we don't yet have the motion on the floor, but I'm assuming that the motion will reflect the typo error being corrected. Yes, okay, staff are nodding that. Okay, it will be noted in the minutes. Councillor Shantz.
Thank you. This might be going down a bit of a rabbit hole, but just a question on the reciprocal borrowing. So if I go to Elmira and there's a book I'm looking for and they don't have it, would they actually get it in for me from one of the other libraries, or do I have to go there?
So through the chair, there are a couple of options for you. If we don't have the book in our library system, we can interlibrary loan the book. It wouldn't necessarily come from one of our neighboring libraries. It could come from Sudbury Public Library through the interlibrary loan system, which delivers items through Canada Post. The other option for you as a patron, if you went to one of our library branches that didn't have a book, but you knew that one of our neighboring library systems did, you could travel to that neighboring library system and pick up the book.
Any other comments or questions on this? Okay, seeing none. So there is a suggested motion, and that is that the Regional Municipality of Waterloo authorize the Manager Library Services to enter into reciprocal borrowing arrangements with other public libraries from time to time on behalf of the Region of Waterloo Library, which forms part of the Regional Municipality of Waterloo, with such agreements to the satisfaction of the Regional Solicitor. Do I have a mover and a seconder for this? Moved by Councillor Foxton, seconded by Councillor Shantz. All those in favor, and that carries unanimously. In terms of information and correspondence, we do have the committee tracking list, and I do want to note that Mrs. Grant would like to add an item, so I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. I'd just like the following to be added: that staff report on the budgetary information related to reconciliation, equity, diversity, and inclusion, including information on the unused 2024 funding and options for the 2025 allocations.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Grant. And my understanding is that has been added to the tracking, so that will be included. Yes, Mr. Griffiths.
Further to the last meeting we had where we talked about the analysis of library governance options, there was some mention at the end of that meeting about the need for some financial analysis material fairly quickly or soon. I don't see reference to that anywhere here. And the second part was that there was also mention of providing the annual budgetary material, particularly to the community reps, just as information. I believe I'm correct in that comment also. So I'm curious what's happening in terms of progression on what I thought was forthcoming fairly quickly from the last meeting.
Through the chair. So the budgetary information is going to be included in that finance and governance options report that's being developed. So there'll be the 3-year budget to actuals included in that in appendix because it relates to some of the information in the report. Any of the budgetary information is already within the council packets online. So that budget information is there, but we can email it directly to you if that's helpful.
So I will actually step in. So at our next meeting, it is noted that at our May 1st meeting, the library finances are going to be discussed from 2022 through to 2024. So that's the items that we did ask for last time. And this will include financials and staff support overview. So that information should be coming in advance of the May 1st meeting. But if you would like them in advance, I suppose that you could do what Commissioner Steffler suggested.
Through the chair, if it's helpful, what we could do is, because the previous year's budget information is sort of buried in the budget book, and it's a little hard to like, we could forward the budget book, but then you have to go through the budget book to find everything. What we could do is extract the library information from the last 3 years and send that just the straight ahead budget information as an email. But then the more detailed financial analysis would come forward in the next report.
I think that sounds like a suitable plan. If you could provide kind of the summarized library budgetary information in an email to all of the committee, that would be great. And then, yes, we'll take the additional information at the next meeting. That works. Councillor Foxton? Sean, I don't know why I'm saying
one of us
Foxton, but I'm
look here, say there. Will that summary include actuals or just budgets?
Through the chair, yeah, the report that we're developing, the financial, I think it's the financial and governance option report, that will have the 3-year budget and actual in a columnar format so you can compare.
The budget overview would not have the actuals in it. It's just from the budget book, but it would give the new members of committees a bit of a context in terms of the budget.
Councillor Foxton?
I agree with the gentleman. I was disappointed some things were not listed on here that we decided upon, and they were essential things. I thought that Councillor Shantz had requested an emotion that something would come back in April in regards to the financial analysis and the starting of KPMG's report. And I did not see that on here, and there was something else, I can't remember what it was. But if they're not on here, and we get on with the other business, we forget, and things fall off, and it's essential they be on here, because it's our tracking method. Thank you.
So perhaps I could suggest offline from the meeting, if there's something that you think should be on the tracking line, that perhaps you reach out to the clerks and just request that it does be added onto the tracking. And that's goes for anyone on committee, that if there's anything that you've noted that you think should have been on there, I think we can do that to make sure we have a comprehensive list. And I will turn it over to Clerk Hale.
Through you, Chair, just a little explanation there. Typically, the tracking lists are for items that don't have a motion to them, because a motion supersedes anything. The tracking list is more for the group agrees, but it's more of a general direction. However, going forward, if you would still like that, that's something that's an easy ask. Sure. We're going to put motions and directions going forward for the library tracking list. Thank you.
And I understand, and you did the right thing, but we need to make sure something doesn't fall through the cracks, and this is an important one, so we really need to keep our fingers on it. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on the committee tracking list or items that people would like to see added? Okay. Yes, Mr. Griffith.
Is there an actual terms of reference for the analysis of library government options beyond the document that was tabled last meeting? I'm sorry to bring this up after the fact, but I'm just curious. And And on the financial, I guess what I would hope would be able to be discerned from whatever you provide would be key information around this particular topic as to what would be having to be juggled into different categories under different options. Am I off track on that, or are you?
I might look to Commissioner Regier for that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair Solonen. I think we're just working, the analysis of different options is just direction from the committee. We're responding to directly. There was a request for a fairly quick turnaround on that, so we're moving pretty quickly to assemble our review of internal information, our legal analysis, and so on and so forth. So that information will all be brought forward at the April meeting, and then we'll try and facilitate a conversation with the committee about its desired direction in the June meeting. May, did I say May? May, yeah, as opposed, yeah. So, so I think the quick answer is we feel like we've got sufficient direction from the committee that we don't need a terms of reference at this stage. And if there is a need for more, fulsome, I was going to use the word philosophical conversation about the matter, then we could, and it was going to take a year or two to complete the analysis, then I think that would probably, and with external partners, I think that would be appropriate. But at this point, I think we're moving pretty quickly to deliver the information that the committee has requested. There was a second element to your question, and I can't recall what that was.
Sorry, it was largely around, I don't fully understand all of the financial materials that were referred to.
Oh, yes.
I was presuming that what will be tabled for this particular project will be kind of keynote information to assist in the analysis of what might be placed where and the monies associated under the different options, that kind of thing, rather than a blanket outline of budgets as they exist now, for example.
Yeah, through the chair, yeah, absolutely. Well, there are each of the concepts that's being considered has got different implications for both the financial structure, the costs, and the legal framework. So all of that will be put together in a package for the committee's consideration.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on the committee tracking list, which is kind of merged into other business as well? Seeing none, I have one request if staff could report back. We've had requests in my community. Apparently St. Mary's Library loans out kayaks as part of their library collection. I think that's super cool, and I've had some requests from residents if this is something possible of our library. I'm just curious if staff at some point could report back if there is any feasibility to that, / even what St. Mary's does. If no huge time pressure on that, it was more so just something that I've had a few members ask of the community, and I think could be something worth exploring. Councillor Foxton.
I think it's a cute idea, but I also think it's a very dangerous idea. And this committee would have to decide whether we're getting into sports or not, and also the liability, especially on the waters, and especially this year when there's going to be as Clerk Tim told me, we're going to get a ton of rain tomorrow, which could lead to flooding. And so it's an interesting thing. Maybe it's for a discussion down the road. Sandy may beg to differ.
No, I don't disagree with you, but I do think it's a philosophical discussion. I know there's, places that lend out tools and all kinds of things. So I think it would be maybe a broader philosophical discussion. Do we want to get beyond the information of, piece?
Right. So then maybe with that, I will work with clerks to bring a more formal motion forward then at another date. Okay. Any other business? Seeing none, our next meeting, as I did note, will be held on May the 1st, 2025, and it will include the discussion of the 2022 to 2024 library financials and staff support overviews. So I will now look for a mover and a seconder to adjourn our meeting. Moved by Councillor Nowak and seconded by Councillor Shantz. Not certain why Councillor Foxton doesn't want to be the one. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us this morning, and we'll see you May 1st.